Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this week's podcast. I am one of your friends with books, Jess, or Read Reviews by Jess.
And I am Emily. You may know me as Booked with Emily on Bookstagram, but you can just call me Em.
Just call me Em.
Yeah.
A lot of you may know us from Bookstagram. This is our first podcast episode. We don't know what we're doing. In all honesty, we've recorded like 5 podcast episodes until this one, and they've just all not worked out for us. But we're trying, and this one, I have good vibes.
I feel like even if this doesn't go the way we want it, we should just put it out there. This should be the final one. Let's just put it out there and see what happens.
I think we should. I mean, like, we're trying really hard. Like,
we're trying our best.
This comes off nonchalant, but like, if this one doesn't work, maybe we're just not meant to do this.
Yeah, this is not for us, actually.
But hi, Em. How are you doing?
Hi, Jess. I am doing well. I'm excited for our first pod. I'm excited to kind of talk about books with you and everything. And really just make you laugh and you make me laugh. And hopefully we make everyone else laugh.
I love that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really excited, and I'm feeling really optimistic and just like, I don't know. I feel like we're just cut out for this life.
No, I agree. I think this is my ticket. This is my ticket out of here.
This is my ticket out of here.
I'm out of here.
Next week I'll have a different podcast episode host because Em is out of here.
See you later. People are like, out of where? Like, where is she? You don't want to know.
Oh my gosh, I'm dead. But since this is our first episode, oh gosh, Emily's about to spit her drink. Since this is our first episode, we figured we'd give you some background into us in our relationship, which is a very tumultuous one.
Toxic at best.
But you know, we're best friends.
Mm-hmm.
We started out as Emily was my stalker on Bookstagram.
Yeah.
Messaged me all the time, and I just ignored her.
Blatantly ignored. Like, just truly left me on red. I'll have to scroll back and literally, like, find screenshots of how desperate I was.
I don't know why I wasn't into it, but I was just not into the vibes that she was giving off. And so we both ghosted Bookstagram for like 6 months, not intentionally together, because I was not talking to her at this point.
Yeah, notice she was not talking to me. I think it was fate, really, though, that we did it at the same exact time. And then
it kind of was. And then we came back, in January of 2022 at this, like, within days of each other.
Yeah.
And it's been, you know, a love story for the ages.
Yeah. I think, you know, in January when we came back, the tables really turned. And Jess was the aggressor, you know, sliding into my DMs and really wanting to be friends. And seeing as I'm not like a mean person, I did answer her. And I nurtured that friendship and like really let it blossom into what it is today.
Yeah, she did. She really did.
And Jess likes to call it, we're a bully romance, as Jess likes to.
Romance. Yeah, you'll notice as we speak to each other, Emily is like my best friend. I adore her, actually, and I think she does know that.
I do.
But I'm also the meanest to her out of anybody in my life. But mainly because I think we both think it's funny, and she's mean back to me. Like, let me assure you, this is not one-sided of me bullying her.
That is true. I will say, she's not lying. I'm mean back like 70% of the time. And then other times, I'm just that desperate girl sliding into her DMs again, begging her to love me.
And I'm mean to her 70% of the time, and other 10% of the time, I am showering her with love and gifts, and then the other 20%, I'm crying in the corner because she's mean to me.
But at the end of the day, we are best friends, and I adore Jess as well. And I truly am so, so thankful for Bookstagram from bringing us together and, I don't know, bringing her and her wonderful husband into my life.
Yeah, we forced our husbands to be friends as well.
Yeah.
Because they're actually the same person,
Yeah.
which is a story for another time. But yeah, so if you follow us on Instagram and you're over here, because we're hysterical on Instagram, like we're hoping to bring that same energy to the podcast. So we will be mean to each other at times, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just know it's sarcastic.
It's all very
Probably.
surface level. It's not, we're not really like meaning these jabs to hurt,
Yeah, like when I tell Emily to shut the fuck up, like I don't actually mean it, probably.
I think she means it. But in my head, like she says the words and I hear it as, Emily, can you please be quiet for just like a second? And that's how I take it. And it's fine.
All right. So now that you have a little bit of a background on why we're starting this podcast, Emily and I buddy read The Paris Apartment in February, and it's kind of what kickstarted our bully romance. And as we were reading it, we were just like cracking each other up. It's a thriller, if you're not familiar.
Not a comedy in any sense at all, but we made it that way. And it was truly like, I think that to date is our best buddy read we've ever done. Like it was just so funny, and it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be funny, but it was.
I agree. And ever since then, like we've kind of really revolved our reading schedule around each other in some way or another. And we kind of progressed to sending voice messages. And then at one point we were literally like, why aren't we doing a podcast? Like these are so funny. We need to be putting these out so the world can also think they're so funny.
I agree because, I just think it takes, like, if we find ourselves funny, I think that says a lot about our humor. Like, I think other people will find us funny as well.
I think so, too. And I do think that I'm the funniest person in the world and Emily is the second funniest. So
I would say Jess is the funniest person in the world, and I am second.
Yeah.
She makes me laugh all the time.
I mean, ditto. Oh, shucks.
And that's the last nice thing I'll say to you on this episode.
All goes downhill from here. To kind of jumpstart everything, we wanted to do a fun little segment of bookish questions so you can get to know us. I'm sure most of you who are listening to this came over from Bookstagram, but this will be kind of like Meet the Podcasters with like 5 quick bookish questions that we'll ask and answer so you have some insight into us and our reading habits.
I think this is going to be a learning experience for us as well because we are very different readers. Yeah. And so I think this is going to be interesting to ask these questions. So
yeah, I think that's a good call out point. Like a lot of the time, Emily and I feel very differently on the books that we read. And we definitely like whether we like them or dislike them or like how we perceive things in books. It's very different. So if you're listening to this, know that like it's not just going to be us agreeing with each other the whole time.
Yeah, and actually another thing, like we, moving forward as we buddy read these books, we're not going to talk about them until we record an episode. Yeah. So all of the conversations we have and every topic that we bring up and kind of may agree or disagree about is very just kind of like off the cuff and organic, like as we talk about it.
Yeah. And Emily and I can see each other, but you all can't see us. You can just hear us. And we're both very, I think, have clear facial reactions. So if she's saying something and I disagree, or if I'm confused, she'll be able to tell on my face and she'll be like, why are you looking at me like that?
Yeah, I'm like, why does your face look like that? But no, that's so true. My mom always told me people can read you like a book, Emily. Which is kind of funny now because, you know, books.
And now we're reading books like books.
Exactly. Okay.
All right.
You ask the first question. I'm ready for you.
All right. First question is, I think, a tough one, but
Great.
What is the best book you've read this year?
This year. Okay, so I guess, like Jess said, if you come over here, you probably came from Instagram, like if you're listening to this pod, so you know that I'm definitely a romance girl through and through. And so I think one of the most shocking books that I've read that I loved, it was just surprising to me, was A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner, just because I've never read anything by her before.
Yeah.
I found her on Kindle Unlimited, and I absolutely adored the book. It was so, so good. So off the top of my head, that's just the one that came to mind. So I'm gonna roll with that one.
I love that, and I think that's fair and makes sense for you.
Yeah, and you've never read it, despite me telling you to.
Yeah. So that's going to be on my to-do list to get Emily off my back more than anything. But I don't know if I should answer this, but I want to. But I think it'll be obvious once I say it. But mine is After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Yeah, you're a slut for TJR.
I am a slut for TJR. And that book is like peak TJR, I think. I've read that book. I love that book as well. I do think it's just, we actually have talked about that one. I think it's a hard read because it's so relatable for, married couples or just someone in a long-term relationship. Yeah. It's very eye-opening. So it definitely makes you think. I think that's why I loved it too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What is mine going to be? Ooh, this is a good one. Do you count audiobooks as reading?
Oh my gosh. Okay, here is my tea. I do. I think they're reading. Like, if that's how you consume books, that's how you consume books. My tea is that I cannot consume audiobooks. Try as I might, I really struggle. And I think it's because I don't leave my house. Like, work from home, I am a homebody, and like, I also can't focus. So if I'm trying to listen to a podcast during work, it's like, a book through while I'm working, like, can't comprehend. Yeah. Even when I'm cleaning or doing anything, like, it just doesn't stick with me. But I think if you consume audiobooks and that's your choice, like, good for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, you have your Goodreads challenge, right? A lot of people on Bookstagram do. And I think if you listen to an audiobook, at least I know for myself, I'm not a huge audiobook girl, but when I do listen to them, I mark it as read, and that goes towards my reading count for the year. I definitely do think it counts as reading.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
And that's the tea.
Okay. Is there a book that made you want to travel somewhere that wasn't on your radar? And I'm going to twist this a little bit. Like, it can be, like, it can exist or it cannot exist.
Okay. Instantly, I would go to the Night Court.
Knew you were going to say
that. At Guitar. Oh my gosh. But I think that's the coolest thing about fantasy books is, like, they do just make you want to go to these places and live in, like, another world. Like, I just think it's so cool. And SJM, her world building is just beyond. Yeah. Like, that place exists to me. Like, that's a real world. People live there. Agree. Like, Reese is there. And so I would love to go there.
I agree. I would probably choose Valeris as well, but just for Azriel. But then I would take Azriel and we would go to the Autumn Court and we would live our best there because I'm an autumn girl, fall vibes.
You're an Az girl,
I'm an
too.
Az girl.
Yeah, I'm a Cassian girl personally, but I would take them all.
Honestly, yeah, same. All three Bat Boys could get it.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Okay. Let's see what I'm reading off of 20 bookish questions right now. So, okay. Is there a book you think would make a great movie?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I feel like there's so many, honestly, that I would.
I think I would choose a Oh, you know what I think would make a good movie is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren.
Oh, 100%. You're so right. I never would have thought about that, but now that you say it, yeah.
It's got a little bit of romance, a little mystery, some adventure in the Wild Wild West.
Comedy.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great movie.
That would be a fun movie for sure. Agreed. Good one. I'm just going to agree with you on that one. That would be a really good one.
All right. Are you a one book at a time reader, or do you read multiple books at a time?
So like I mentioned, I am a romance girl. I typically tend to just read romance books or just like contemporary fictions throughout the year. And so I usually stick to one book at a time because I can only focus on kind of one plot at a time and the characters. However, now that we're in spooky season, I've definitely kind of gone into like mysteries and thrillers. So I have been able to read 2 books at a time. I read like the mystery or thriller during the day because I'm scared to at night. And then I'll read like like a romance or something in the evening. So right now I can read 2, but for the most part, I'm usually a one book kind of gal.
I am the same way, especially with thrillers. I think I even texted you and I was like, can we do a podcast later? Because I have to finish the scary book before the sun goes down. And you were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then I proceeded to fall asleep for 3 hours. So.
I am definitely a multiple book at a time sort of girl. Probably 2.
It stresses me out.
It stresses me out. I'm just a mood reader is what it is. Right now, if I'm looking at my Goodreads currently reading, there's 9 books on there. So yeah.
I think that says a lot about you as a person.
I think it does too, you know.
Very diverse. I love it. So, all right. Well, I think we are out of time for bookish questions.
We are out of time for bookish questions. All right. Let's get to our first buddy read review.
Oh,
chit
okay.
chat.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's serve it up.
Let's serve it up. On this episode, we are talking about In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. Tell us what this book is about.
So this book is essentially about a group of friends who met in college. They are referred to as the East House 7. They all were in the same building. And it's dual timeline. So when we first start reading the book, we are introduced to Jessica Miller, who is one of the friends, and she just got an invite to her 10-year college reunion. So she goes back to her college reunion. All of her friend group is there, minus 2 people, because one of the friends was murdered while they were in college, and one of the other friends was accused of the murder. So they are now the East House 5. And so the book really kind of just takes us on a ride of a whodunit type thing, right? Who killed Heather, the friend? And a lot of secrets are kind of revealed amongst the friends because there's multi-point of views happening. So that's how I would describe it, kind of like a whodunit mystery type situation.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. So just some random FAQ details about this book. This is categorized as a thriller, which we'll get into. It is 352 pages long, and on Goodreads, it has a 3.96 of almost 40,000 reviews.
So that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
Review-wise. And not to mention, this is Ashley's debut novel.
Which is insane.
So yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And just real quick, actually, I wanted to mention that I listened to half of this book on audiobook, like as an audiobook. I'm not an audiobook girl, but I actually was driving like a long distance for work, and I couldn't stop thinking about this book. Yeah. So I had an Audible credit, and I listened to half of it, and it was a phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I read this on my Kindle, even though I have a physical copy. I'm a big Kindle reader. And so oftentimes what I'll do, I don't know if this is illegal or not. I don't think it is. I just think it's kind of rude. But I will get the...
I'm scared. We're going to be canceled.
I'll put a hold on the book on Libby, and I'll read the Libby book, ebook, even though I have a physical copy. I don't think that's illegal. It's just rude, like I said.
No, I don't think any cops are going to come knocking at your door.
Put them on!
Collect your Kindle as evidence. Put it in the Ziploc bag. That's actually probably a big bookish no-no. Like, Don't do that anymore. Let's just edit this out, actually.
I think it's smart, and I also think it helps me read more because I can like tandem read between a physical copy and a Kindle. So I like to read my Kindle all the time, but mainly at night in bed, just because you can get cozier with it. I think like you don't have to have the light on; you can lay down. So I go back and forth, but this one I actually did read all on my Kindle. Anyways, unrelated.
Yeah. And if you're wondering, this is not sponsored at Amazon. We love Kindles, if you're listening. But no, I'm the same way, actually. I don't have Libby, but if it's on Kindle Unlimited and I have a physical copy, I will read the e-version because I just prefer e-books because I do read faster. But, okay, sidetracked.
That'll happen a lot.
Literally.
So why, when I said the genre is thriller, and I said, we'll talk about this later. This is later, and we're going to talk about it. Em and I both agreed that we did not think this was a thriller for a couple reasons. Number one, we looked up the definition of thriller because we're dumb and didn't want to sound dumb.
Yeah.
And we didn't think it fell into the definition, but we did think that before we looked up the definition as well. And it just comes down to, like, I didn't feel at any point in time while reading this book that I was like scared or anxious or like there was a lot of tension or buildup. I just didn't feel that. And I think that's going into this book thinking it was a thriller, honestly made me not like it as much.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly how I feel, to be honest with you. I mean, we did talk about that, the genre, just because I think that's why I didn't give this 5 stars, because going into this, I was thinking it was going to be this crazy, like, psychological thriller. I was going to be on the edge of my seat the whole time. And so I was kind of disappointed for the first probably, like, good 50, 60 pages, like, maybe even a little longer. But then I became so invested in the characters because this is a character-driven story as opposed to plot-driven. So once I just adjusted kind of my expectations of what to expect, I like couldn't put it down. I never felt like you said, anxious or on the edge of my seat or scared or anything like that. I think it was more of a mystery, like a dark academia mystery is exactly how I would categorize it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think reading this, it wasn't until after I finished the book, and it was like a couple days after I was still thinking about it, I kind of changed my expectations, and I went into my review and my thoughts thinking like, okay, if I'm not going into this thinking it's a thriller, then how do I feel about the book? And as I thought about it, I was like, well, I actually like this much better because I'm not like scared. I wasn't scared while I was reading it. I was literally just like, what the hell is going on? Because all of these characters were just so terrible, and I was so frustrated with them the whole time.
They were the worst.
They were all so bad, and they all had these different like toxic traits and issues, and they just were constantly hurting each other, and like, I don't know.
And as their secrets started to unravel, like from the get-go, you know, obviously, like you first meet these characters and you're like, oh, these characters are like fucked. Like they are not good people at all. But then once you like start going into the past and, you know, seeing how they became friends, you're like, oh my God, like what is wrong with these people?
No, as we're thinking about characters, so there's the East House 7, obviously, which is Jess. Oh God.
Caro.
Coop,
Heather,
Jess, Caro, Coop, Heather, Frankie, Mint, and Jack. Yeah, that's all of them. So who out of the East House 7 was your favorite character?
I don't know if any of them were my favorite. Like, I don't know if I was rooting for any of them. I think the most tolerable character was probably Caro. I just think that she had like the least amount of like toxic traits, and she like didn't hurt her friends the way that everyone else did.
Okay, Caro was kind of a stalker though.
But I think that was probably the least troubling like trait that any of them had.
That's fair.
I will say too, I liked Coop just because I feel like I just am always rooting for that like toxic bad boy, you know, and that's Coop. He's just like, you know, the leather jacket and the motorcycle, and comes from this troubled past. So I think I liked, and I don't think he was a terrible friend either, besides sleeping with his like, you know, best friend's girlfriend. But
It's neither here nor there.
So, I don't know. I would say the most tolerable was probably Caro, but I think I have just like a little piece of my
Coop.
heart. Yeah, a little crush with Coop. But
That's
what
fair.
about you?
I think Frankie was my favorite by far. I think he was actually the least toxic. And I don't know. I loved his character. Like, I loved his kind of backstory of being this like manly football guy who is like trying to live up to his dad expectations, and his dad's kind of a dick and is just pushing him to be this star, but he's actually in the closet, and he is actually in love with another member of the East House 7, and just like seeing him, the part in the book where he's like on the float, and it's in the current time, and he's an NFL star, and he comes out to this whole crowd while he's on the float, and says he's gay. Like, that was one of my favorite parts, and he was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I think his like character arc was really good, because like when he was in college, like, remember that scene in the frat house when the frat guys were picking on a gay kid and, you know, calling him like really derogatory terms and just being like really cruel, and Frankie didn't do anything about it. He just let it happen because I think he had his own demons where like he couldn't defend him because he was obviously still in the closet. So I think then to be in the NFL and this, you know, idol to probably like all these kids and just own that was like a really kind of profound moment, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I will say, I don't know if he's not toxic considering he thought he killed Heather by giving her a concussion.
Okay, but they all thought they killed Heather, literally.
That's true.
I guess Caro didn't think she killed Heather, but I thought Caro at one point was the killer, because the scene in the book where she is spying on Heather, Frankie, and I think Jack, because Heather found out Frankie was doing steroids, and Caro's like, I will do anything to keep this friend group together. And I was like, damn, she killed Heather.
She's guilty. I think at one point I suspected her too, because she was like the least obvious.
Yeah.
And I just feel like when I read thrillers, listen, I am not a thriller girl, so I feel like I really can't pinpoint things. Like, I am anxious until the very end of books trying to figure out like who done it. And so I really thought at one point she may have been guilty too, but we were very wrong.
Yeah. I think that's the point of this particular, well, maybe all thrillers and all mysteries, is like they really make you think that it could be anyone, and who done it, who done this.
Who done this murder?
That's really the point. But I mean, who else did you really have a strong inkling was the killer?
Well, I guess process of elimination, I didn't think it was Jess, because again, I thought it was too obvious. You know, she woke up with blood on her hands. Like, it had to be something else. I knew it wasn't Jack. I don't know. I thought maybe Coop might have had something to do with it, just because I liked him so much, and I was like worried that he did do it. But like, I really didn't have like a guess. I certainly didn't guess Mint.
Who was the killer? Spoiler.
He done it.
Mint
done it.
No. Yeah, I didn't guess Mint. I think my strongest inkling was toward Jess, just because I'm the opposite. And when I'm reading a thriller, I'm like trying to pick out the facts. And I think hers makes the most sense, because who the hell just wakes up covered in blood and then your roommate is also dead?
Valid. And she also thought she did it.
She thought she did it. Yeah.
Yeah, like at one point she literally said, I killed Heather. But that was also like halfway through the book. And you're like, no, you didn't. Like, it's too early for you to like, for us to solve
No, that was
this.
towards the end of the book when they were in the
Was
tower. It was literally like almost right before Mint came in and they found out it was him.
Oh, you're right, because it was at the parade. You're right. Yeah, it was towards like definitely the last quarter of the book. I do feel like the last quarter of the book, not dragged because I couldn't flip the pages fast enough, but I don't think it was rushed at all. Like, I thought it was thoroughly explained, which I liked, because I feel like sometimes thrillers wrap up so quickly and you're like, what the heck just happened? So I think there was probably like a good 50, 60 pages after we found out like who did it, you know, like explaining everything.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. I'm full of good points.
We'll see about that. Okay, so I think neither of us expected Mint to be the killer. What was your reaction to finding out that's who it was? And on top of that, to finding out why he killed Heather.
I think it made total sense. Like, after it was explained, I'm like, I don't know how, like, I know why I didn't see it, because I think it was a good twist, but I think being that Mint, you know, had these incredibly deep daddy issues and then he was being made out to be his father, you know, after finding out that Jess was cheating on him, even though he was wrong about, you know, who he was with. But like, after he found that out and he thought that like he was being perceived as like a weak man and just being made a fool of, I was not surprised at all that he wanted to kill her. But then another plot twist, like how like he meant to kill Jess. Like, he didn't mean to kill Heather, obviously. So I thought that was a really cool kind of, I don't know, twist.
Yeah. No, I think I'm in the same boat, because I think throughout the book you don't really get much of Mint and Heather interacting. So I feel like he's definitely the person I thought would be the least likely. Like, I was definitely not even considering that Mint was the killer when he was like, I'm the killer.
Yeah, it was me.
But
no, same. Wait, I think actually at one point, I could be making this up, but I think at one point I thought, like, are Mint and Heather sleeping together? Like, are they having an affair? Because they didn't interact at all. And so I was like, are they purposely not interacting? This is me trying to solve a mystery, like, so off base.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I think that the twist of not Mint being the killer, but Mint killing Heather by pure series of unfortunate events was like such a shocker for me, and I was literally like, what the hell? Like, that's so wild. So if you hadn't read the book yet and you're not looped into this, Mint killed Heather because honestly, like I said, series of unfortunate events. Heather finds out that her boyfriend Jack is cheating on her. Heather gets in a fight and leaves the party. Frankie takes her home.
Well, she was drugged.
I was just gonna say that. Her friend
drugged. Oh.
But before she leaves the party, her best friend, Courtney, gives her some diet pills from China that actually knock you the fuck out. So she's zonked, and she gets back to the dorm with Frankie. Frankie tries to put her in the bed, accidentally slams her head off the headboard. Frankie thinks he killed her, but she's actually fine. But
Courtney thinks she killed her because of the drugs.
Yeah.
Like,
well, but
it's just a mess.
Coop thinks he killed her because of the drugs that he deals, which were not actually the drugs that killed her.
So everyone really killed her.
Like, yeah,
it was a joint
effort of series of unfortunate events. But somehow Heather ends up in Jess's bed. Mint is ready to just totally defame Jess and just drag her through the dirt and
demoralize her.
Yeah, and she doesn't come to the party. And he's like, "You think you can play me, bitch?" And so he goes.
You saw it.
Goes to her.
I'll murder you. You don't want you stand me up. I'll actually just kill you.
Literally, this
seems dramatic.
Daddy issues will do that to you. So yeah, that's pretty much what happens. But I think one of the characters that we really haven't touched on at all was Heather. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on Heather's character.
So reading the book, like, I didn't think anything of her. She was just kind of one of the East House 7. But then after finishing the book, I was like, wait, like, I think Heather was actually, like, a really shitty friend. Like, I don't think she was a good friend to Jess at all. There were a couple scenes in the book where she kind of made, like, I don't know, like, maybe not passive aggressive, but condescending comments to Jess. And then at the very end, too, she won, like, a scholarship that Jess wanted so bad. And when Jess was like, oh, like, I didn't even know you were trying to win this, she was like, oh, like, I wasn't trying. It was just, like, kind of on a whim that I applied for it. But then it was discovered that she actually was vying for the scholarship, like, all semester long. Mm-hmm. And she knew Jess wanted it. So I think, like all of them, they all had their secrets and they weren't good friends to each other. So I don't think Heather was innocent at all.
So I think that's an interesting point. Like, I definitely agree with the condescending comments that she would make about Jess. And just, like, overall, she really had this air of confidence about her and really, like, thought she was the best, even though she was often described as, like, just, like, this girl who is, like, not the prettiest, and she's kind of just there. But I think I also thought it was Jess, because throughout the book, thought the killer was Jess, sorry. Throughout the book, there's just, like, so many instances between Jess and Heather that you're just, like, Jess also has these really, like, low self-confidence. Like, she wants to prove herself. She doesn't come from
so
money.
Insecure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, continuously there's parts in the book where Heather has things that Jess really wants.
I think Jess, everything she wants to be is Heather.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
like,
a good point.
Like, she wants to be that very confident, self-assured, so comfortable in her skin person, who gets things so easily, because Heather does, like, everything Heather wants she gets, and she just never has to think about, like, consequences or how she's going to get something. Like, she just gets it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Open to interpretation for sure.
What else is open to interpretation about this book?
Okay, so the book is called In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, okay? And on the cover, there is a giant pair of scissors. So, like, I'm kind of confused at first, right? Like, I'm thinking, like, the murder weapon has to be, like, a knife. I don't know why there's scissors on the cover. Well, then, like, as you guys know, she was murdered with a pair of scissors. And so, like, we just couldn't wrap our head around why the title was called In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife. Like, it should obviously be In My Dreams, I Hold a Pair of Scissors.
Yeah.
And so, as just mentioned, no one's claiming that we're the smartest people out here, Like, we are not...
We're claiming the opposite.
Yeah, like, we are actually admitting it. We're not literary geniuses. And so, I actually messaged Ashley Winstead on Instagram, who is so sweet. Like, she took the time to respond to me, and I just asked her, like, hey, like, I loved your book. Can you maybe explain to me where you got the title seeing as, like, the murder weapon was scissors? And she was just like, it's meant to be kind of like a play on, or a metaphor, like, you stab your friends in the back, with a knife, and which they do. Like, they are very toxic, and everyone stabs everyone in the back. I just personally wouldn't have drawn that conclusion by myself.
No, and I think I'm the same way, where I was just like, I don't get it, but, like, okay, this is what it is, sort of thing. But if you interpreted the title in that way, like, you got it and you didn't have to message the author because you're smarter than us.
Or you just, like, didn't care. Like, you weren't hyper fixated on this.
Yeah, like, let us know what your thoughts were. But I think what it really truly comes down to is In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife sounds much better than In My Dreams, I Hold a Scissor or a pair of scissors.
I would definitely agree. I think her, maybe agent definitely led her in the right direction with that title. But
oh my gosh. Yes. Well, what did you end up rating this book?
You know what? Let me go back on my Bookstagram review, because I did a review on this. And I did 4.5. And I think I took off half a star because of the title.
Oh my God.
I'm totally kidding. It wasn't the title. I took off half a star because what we talked about in the beginning, I expected it to be a thriller, and I expected it to be like more of a psychological kind of twist. And it wasn't. And I even said that in my review, you know, once I adjusted my expectations, like I really kind of immersed myself into the story, and I loved it. And I thought it was a phenomenal debut, and I can't wait to read more by her. But what about you? What did you land on? Because I know you went back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, so when I finished the book, I rated it 3 stars. And then, like I said earlier, I kind of could not stop thinking about it. And I even texted Emily and I was like, I can't stop thinking about these characters in this book. And after I kind of separated it from being the thriller that I went into it expecting and kind of looked at it in a different lens, I bumped it up to 4 stars. I still think... I think there definitely was some Bookstagram hype surrounding this one, and I think I also let that impact my review a little bit. Like, I didn't think the twist was that wild. Like, it wasn't the craziest thing I ever read. Like, it was a good twist, I think, but I also think it was a little bit overhyped.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think that's like a big... And, you know, this might be a conversation actually for another day about like Bookstagram hype, but I think that's a really good point. You know, when you hear such good things about a book, I feel like when you go into it, it underwhelms you, or you're kind of like, you buy into the hype where you're like, yeah. I loved it. I absolutely loved it because everyone else loved it. So that's definitely an interesting point you got there.
Conversation for another day. Add it to the list. We compiled just a short list of other dark academia mystery recommendations. So if you read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, and if you're looking for something similar, we've got 4 recs for you. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, It Girl by Ruth Ware, If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, and The Maidens by Alex Michaelidas, however you say his last name.
Yes. And I just want to put it out there that I actually have read none of those books, but they all sound really good. Especially, I think that we were looking this up, If We Were Villains and It Girl, they sound pretty good. So
yeah, I actually have It Girl, and I've heard such amazing things about If We Were Villains, so maybe we'll try and read that together for a future podcast.
Yes. And Ninth House is actually one of the 9 books you're currently reading, and it has scared you. So
it has scared me, so I had to stop, but I'll probably finish it. As you're kind of starting to listen to this podcast, and we want you to know, number 1, we're thankful for you being here, and we're excited to continue this journey. Number 2, I think for the best podcast experience, if you'd like to continue listening along with us, which we so hope you do, read along with us. Yes. We'll announce over on Instagram our buddy read that we're going to be chatting about. So if you want to read along with us, it'll kind of be like you're sitting in the room too, and we're just chit-chatting and having a blast.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think, you know, this is new to us too, but I think our goal with this podcast is really just to have fun. Like, at the end of the day, like, you know, we're 2 best friends who just really bond over reading. And I think we both find it so interesting how so many people, especially us, you know, 2 people have so much in common, can perceive books so differently. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really just, you know, we're here to have fun and make each other laugh and make you laugh. And if you guys get some, you know, book recs along the way, then I just think that's really an added bonus.
Totally.
Yes.
I love that. And I think another little fun tidbit is a segment that we'll be pursuing in the future. So, tell us about Bookmarked.
Oh, yes. I'm excited about this. So, Bookmark is going to be a fun little segment that we do for each episode, where if you're listening along at the end of the episode, we are going to ask you a question. And if you know the answer to it, then you can slide into our DMs over on Instagram and tell us the answer, and we will pick someone at random, and you'll win a book or a gift card or just something fun. So I guess with that being said, should we do our first bookmark?
Let's do it. Our first bookmark is, what was the murder weapon in My Dreams I Hold a Knife?
Yeah. So if you know it, go ahead and DM us at Friends with Books Pod over on Instagram.
Yeah. Again, at Friends with Books Pod. What was the murder weapon?
I'm excited to see who listens.
I am too. All right. Well, I guess we can say we are friends with In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. If you liked this episode and want to continue reading along with us, our next episode will be announced over on Instagram at Friends with Books Pod.
Yeah, so in the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the pod and follow us over on Instagram at Friends with Books Pod.
Bye.
See you later.